investigation as the probe into President Biden's handling of classified information takes center stage.
Jonathan Turley telling Fox News Digital that, quote, the most serious discovery would be evidence that Biden worked off their documents or removed them from their classification folders. If these documents were used or knowingly possessed over the 6 years, it would qualify as an intentional act to unlawfully possess the material. You're watching Fox News First here on a Tuesday morning. I'm Todd Meyer.
And I'm Carly Schiff. Yes, this all comes as the White House says no visitor logs exist for the president's Delaware home where classified material was discovered. The New York Post says the administration is playing Biden-seek with critical information. Alexandria Hoff is live in Washington with the latest. Alex, good morning. Good morning, and creative headline as always. Republicans have demanded a log at the president's Wilmington home this weekend, trying to sort out who may have had access to additional batches of classified documents that were found there. So let's recap. On January 9th, news finally breaks of the classified documents found at the Penn Biden Center back in early November. On the 11th, another document is located in the president's home by his personal lawyers. A White House lawyer then finds 5 more documents there on the 12th. 2 days later, that is revealed publicly. And yesterday, the White House says that no visitor logs to the president's Wilmington residence exist. Adding this, quote, like every president in decades of modern history, his personal residence is personal. Now, both the House Oversight Committee and the House Judiciary Committee have launched investigations into the matter, as a special counsel has been appointed to probe as well. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer does not buy that visitors weren't kept track of. Listen.
We wonder if the Secret Service had records now. That's our next question, because he still had Secret Service protection. And you would assume that the Secret Service would vet people that would be allowed on the premise of the dwelling for the President of the United States.
One would think. The White House feels that the GOP, though, is politicizing the ordeal, calling the investigations hypocritical, considering the simultaneous special counsel probe into former President Trump's possession of classified documents. They're saying this, quote, House Republicans are playing politics in a shamelessly hypocritical attempt to attack President Biden. House Republicans have no credibility. Their demands should be met with skepticism. House Judiciary Chairman Congressman Jim Jordan feels the American people need transparency and fairness, sharing this, quote, why was President Trump's home raided but not President Biden's? Why did the FBI take pictures of President Trump's so-called classified documents but not President Biden's? Republicans just want fair and equal treatment under the law. And of course, major questions remain, mainly like what was the subject matter of the classified documents, and why did it take more than 2 months before the public knew about them? Carly, the first batch of documents found before the midterm elections. So a big question there. Alex, thank you so much. Former House Speaker Newt Gingrich says Republican investigations are going to be crucial.
This is why the election was really, really important. Because now you have people in charge of these committees who are going to have the power of subpoena. And there are so many questions outstanding, starting with the Biden documents. For example, it leads you right into the University of Pennsylvania, which received millions and millions of dollars from the Chinese communists. And the whole question of how was that money accounted for, to what degree did virtually the entire Biden team, including the Secretary of State, earn a living off of money from the University of Pennsylvania, which was fungible from the Chinese communists.
Well, let's bring in former federal prosecutor and former ICE director Jonathan Fahey. Jonathan, you heard Newt Gingrich there talking about investigations. A lot of those investigations are going to be led by Congressman James Comer, who you heard in Alexandria Hoff's piece saying the Secret Service has to have some sort of record of who came and went from this Biden residence. So how do we find out who came and went? Is it a subpoena to the Secret Service or what?
Well, that's kind of an interesting thing, because this White House, I think, pledged to be transparent very recently, maybe even last week or even this week. And I think what's interesting is he was president of the United States. He has lots of staff. If they wanted to produce a list of who visited him, the White House chief of staff can have an aide probably put this together in a half an hour or an hour. But so they're deliberately hiding behind the fact they don't have quote-unquote visitor logs to act like they don't know who was there. They certainly could put it together. And yeah, I think you could subpoena the Secret Service, you could subpoena people that work at the White House and say, who was there visiting? And this isn't invading his privacy, because they're not going to say what you were necessarily talking about, but let's find out who was there because there could be a national security risk because based on who was there. But this White House, again, this shows a couple things. They pledged that to be transparent, they're not. They also talk about everyone agrees President Biden takes classified documents seriously. Well, that's been blown out of the water. He doesn't take them seriously at all. He thinks the fact that they were in his garage and the garage is locked is good enough. And, it's absolutely absurd. They have a responsibility to be transparent. He's the president of the United States. He shouldn't hide behind lawyers or hide behind anything else.
Yeah, so President Biden's defense so far has been that he didn't know that classified documents were in his home and in his office. And when he found out, he was immediately transparent with the DOJ and willing to comply. Does that defense work here?
Well, it doesn't seem that it's true, because did he immediately comply? We don't know when these documents were found. We know when they turned them over to the DOJ. So we, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And again, where are these documents found? They're found all over the place. And, it doesn't seem like he's really made an effort to be transparent, because he's having a lawyer go and look for these documents. What does that mean? Well, they're trying to look for privilege issues and other things to hide behind. If they wanted to be transparent, they could say, invite the FBI to come on in and search the house and find these documents. But for some reason, they seem very, very concerned about this, and they're not acting like this was a mistake. And the other thing was his garage comment is, it really makes, it's a bizarre comment, but it also suggests that it implies that he knew they were there, because he's like, don't worry about it, it's a locked garage. But everything about this doesn't make a whole lot of sense at this point.
Yeah, that line, I take classified documents seriously. I think part of it's correct. I think he takes classified documents. It's the serious part that is in question. I want to get your thoughts on this, Jonathan. An early morning shooting yesterday in Goshen, California leaves 6 dead, including a mother and her baby. But here's what's interesting about this. The Tulare County Sheriff telling the LA Times, quote, I think it's specifically connected to the cartel. With the level of violence, this was not your run-of-the-mill low-end gang member. They're calling it an execution, so how worried are you that cartel executions on U.S. soil, mind you, this isn't Mexico, this isn't Central America, this is on U.S. soil, will become more frequent now that Biden's border is so open and has been for the last 2 years?
Yeah, that is a great concern, and that is what we should be really concerned about in the future. And this is a horrible tragedy, and hopefully whoever did this is held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. But what this administration has been doing, speaking about taking things not seriously, they have not taken this border issue seriously. And in the meantime, they have emboldened these cartels, they have enriched these cartels, because this administration's highest priority has been encouraging the most amount of illegal immigrants to come into the
For life skills, Ergo offers timber craft laminated wood floors with Wet Protect technology. They're waterproof and watertight, guaranteed. With the industry's only surface and subfloor waterproof warranty, they look and feel like hardwood, and they're wear, fade, and stain-proof.
Into the country, and they don't care who suffers in the interim. They don't care who's at risk. They don't care if it's national security. They don't care if people overdose on drugs. They have not yielded on their highest priority, which is massive illegal immigration with no safeguards, and they want an open border really at all costs. And it really is scary, because these cartels are getting more and more powerful. We see what's going on down in Mexico, and if it creeps over, it's a pretty scary thing.
Yeah, without question. The situation is horrific. It's a mother and her 6-month-old baby, and police are saying that this group of people were shot execution style in California on U.S. soil. CBP sources tell Fox News that December migrant encounter numbers will exceed 250,000. That's the highest level on record. And there are also 65,000 known gotaways in December alone. And to put that into perspective, Chad Wolf said that when they had 70,000 migrant crossings under Trump, they felt like it was a crisis. Now that number has more than tripled.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing if you think about it. You add the number of crossers to the gotaways, and we're on pace for several million people per year. I just think for 2 more years in Biden's term, we're looking at 7, 8 million people. That's a large state in terms of population, in addition to what's already come across. But this is, this would have been a crisis under Donald Trump, but this is a cause for celebration for this administration because they're doing everything they can to encourage this. Every time you hear a new statement or a new policy from DHS, it's to make it easier to come into this country illegally, easier to stay if you're here, more benefits if you're here. So this is only going to get worse. And again, they are so committed to this. It's truly remarkable how unyielding they are to this open borders agenda.
Speaking of that, DHS just launched an app that allows illegal immigrants to schedule appointments with border agents so they can upload information about themselves in advance so that their appointments with Border Patrol are shorter. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, what do you say about this? Everything they do, they try to make it easier and easier for people to come. You push a button to schedule asylum claim. And, meanwhile, this administration doesn't do anything to discourage fraudulent asylum seekers because they know most of these people are not legitimate asylum seekers. These are not people fleeing torture and persecution. These are people that want to earn more money and have a better life for themselves, which is certainly an admirable quality. It doesn't mean they have a right to come here, but this administration encourages every one of them, and this is just another thing in this long list of things they've done to encourage people to come across. The other thing that I think is quite interesting, they really want what's going on at the border to sort of tone down, so they want to make it easier, but they don't care about the consequences internally. The Eric Adams issue, which he's talking about all the costs in New York, so this won't do anything to alleviate those costs. It will make those even worse because they'll have more and more people come. And this administration doesn't care. Like I said, they will do nothing other than encourage more and more illegal immigration and demonize anyone that speaks up against it. It's truly awful.
Wouldn't it be nice if homeless vets had such a robust app to help them navigate a city inside and out? Clearly not the case. Jonathan Fahey, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Bryan Kohberger's former defense attorney believes the evidence presented against him can be attacked in court. The attorney who represented the Idaho murder suspect during his extradition from Pennsylvania to Moscow, Idaho, says the case is purely circumstantial. We're also learning that Kohberger talked to one of his neighbors in Washington about the murders shortly after they happened. That neighbor, who wants to remain anonymous, telling Fox Nation host Nancy Grace some chilling details.
But he actually since then heard about the murders.
Yeah, when we were talking right here, he said, "Did you hear about these murders?" And I was like, yeah, because it just happened. He's like, "Yeah, it seems like they don't have any leads." And I was like, "Yeah, I guess not." And he's like, "Yeah, they think it's a crime of passion."
The neighbor's wife reportedly said something always seemed off about Kohberger, and she did not want him around.
The mother of the 23-year-old woman who was allegedly murdered by ex-Alabama basketball player Darius Miles says he did it because her daughter wouldn't talk to him. Miles and another man are charged with capital murder in that young woman's death. Authorities say the two suspects shot up the car she was sitting in after a minor altercation between the three. Wow, Ring doorbell footage shows the shooting, shows the chilling moments. At least 11 shots rang out blocks away from the University of Alabama football stadium. The university dismissing Miles from the basketball team upon learning of his alleged involvement in that murder.
Listen to this. The D.C. Council expected to pass new criminal reform legislation which will soften penalties for crimes like carjacking and burglary, overriding Mayor Muriel Bowser's veto. The revised criminal code Act would reduce maximum sentences, eliminate nearly all mandatory minimum sentences, and give jury trials to suspects accused of misdemeanors. Since January 1, there have been 16 carjackings. That averages out to one every single day. Apparently, the D.C. Council wants that number to go higher. Critics also sounding the alarm over a provision which would allow inmates convicted of violent crimes like murder or sexual assault to ask for an early release 20 years into their sentence. If the council goes against the mayor and passes this bill, federal lawmakers will send it to Congress 4 on vote. That's a head scratcher.
Turning out of this, a total of 13 Virginia schools now accused of withholding merit scholarships from students, all in the name of equity. And now Governor Glenn Youngkin is stepping in. We're going to tell you how his administration is holding the districts accountable.
Plus, a growing number of Democrat states are banning gas-powered cars and forcing you to go electric. But Wyoming flipping the script.
At least 13 high schools in Northern Virginia have failed to notify students about them earning National Merit Awards. Prince William County School District, the latest to be implicated in the scandal that's quickly sweeping Virginia. The district released a statement that reads in part, this year, due to an accidental administrative oversight, 2 out of 13 PWCS high schools made recent notifications to approximately 16 students. All other PWCS high schools either had no qualifying students or made notifications earlier this school year. In addition to the 2 schools in Prince William County, 7 in Fairfax County and 4 in Loudoun County failed to properly notify students of their awards. The counties have said basic oversights are to blame, but Governor Glenn Youngkin isn't buying it, saying, quote, the schools have a maniacal focus on equal outcomes for all students.